Welcome to this podcast episode brought to you by AGS Agriculture Global Solutions, your partner for better farming practices in Malaysia.
It's great to be here.
So today we're looking at a topic that, I have to be honest, when I first saw the research, I thought there was a typo. We're talking about halal energy. I mean, our listeners, they know halal food, halal finance, but energy, electricity, it's not like we're, eating the electrons.
It definitely sounds a bit strange at first. But if you look at the studies coming out of Indonesia and Malaysia on palm oil biomass, this is, well, it's becoming a very serious sector.
Okay, but for the smallholders listening right now, is this just some high-level policy thing?
No, not at all. This is actually a concrete strategy to increase the value of your harvest. It's about tapping into a very specific and, frankly, a very wealthy export market.
Let's be skeptical for a moment. When we talk about adding value, we usually mean better OER, better FFB handling. We're talking about the oil. Today, we're talking about the leftovers. The EFB, the shells, the fiber, even the old trunks. Is there really a market for halal waste?
See, that's the first thing we have to change. You have to stop calling it waste.
Okay, fair enough.
There's a huge market. The global halal economy is projected to hit something like $3.1 trillion by 2027. And a big piece of that growth is from the GCC states, Saudi Arabia, the UAE.
Right.
They want renewable energy, but they want it to align with their values. So they aren't looking at the electricity itself. They're looking at the supply chain that created it.
So it's about the source. They want to know the biomass that was burned to generate the power was ethically sourced.
Exactly. The research points to 4 key halal principles that apply here: purity, stewardship, anti-waste, and social justice.
And if a farmer can prove their biomass meets these standards,
Then that pile of EFB becomes a premium product. If they can't, it's just generic fuel, and you get the lowest possible price for it.
Okay, let's break that down then. I want to know what this actually looks like on the farm. Let's start with the one that seems most practical. Anti-waste or ISRUF?
This is really the foundation of the whole thing. The principle of ISRUF is basically a strict rule against being wasteful. And in the context of a plantation, the research is pretty blunt. It says our use of these residues is currently suboptimal.
Which is the academic way of saying we're letting money rot in the field.
Precisely.
Well, let's talk reality. If I'm a smallholder, I've got a pile of fronds after pruning. The easiest thing to do is just shove them aside for mulch. Or, let's be honest, sometimes people still burn them to clear space fast.
I know.
You're saying that's not just bad practice, it's actually, violating a halal standard.
It is. The research actually calls this biomass a secondary harvest. So if you burn it or you scatter it where it can't be recovered, you are committing ISRUF. You're wasting a resource.
Okay, but here's the friction point. Collecting biomass is hard work. It's heavy, it's bulky. If I have to stack it all neatly for collection, that's more labor. Is it really worth it?
That really depends on your setup. The advice here is all about recoverability.
Recoverability.
Yes. If you throw the fronds into a ravine where a truck can't get to them, you've destroyed the value. So to comply and to get paid, you need to manage the biomass with the same care as your FFB. You stack it at the roadside in accessible spots.
So practically speaking, I need to think about offtake lanes for the biomass, just like I do for the fresh fruit bunches.
Exactly. If you can't load it, you can't sell it. And in the honest framework, if you can't sell it, you're wasting it. It's about thinking like a fuel supplier, not just a palm oil farmer.
Okay, that's a logistical challenge, but I get it. Let's move to the second pillar, which seems harder to imagine on a farm. Purity. They talk about avoiding najis or contamination.
This is where it gets tricky, and honestly, this is where most producers might fail the audit.
I mean, come on. A plantation is a messy place. There's mud, runoff, pests. How can a pile of palm shells sitting outside be pure in a religious sense? We're not building a clean room.
No, of course not. Nobody expects a hospital ward. But input integrity here means something specific. It means the biomass must be free from prohibited substances or hazardous chemicals.
Give me a real-world example. How does a farmer mess this up?
Okay, picture your 3-ton lorry. In the morning, you use it to haul some bags of chemical fertilizer, maybe some empty pesticide containers. You don't wash out the truck bed.
Right.
Then in the afternoon, you load that same truck with palm kernel shells to sell.
And the chemical residue gets onto the shells. I see.
Exactly. Or something even simpler. You use those plastic weave bags for fertilizer. A little piece of that plastic shreds off and falls into your pile of EFB. To a high-spec halal energy plant, that plastic is a contaminant. It makes a whole batch impure.
Wow, that seems incredibly strict, a tiny piece of plastic.
If you want to sell into that premium market, yes. It's about hygiene and separation. The advice is simple, but it has to be followed. You need a dedicated, clean area for your biomass.
So no more just dumping it on a patch of ground that has oil spills or old tires lying around?
You can't, and you absolutely have to wash your vehicles between different loads. You need a biomass-only zone.
It sounds like a hassle.
It is a bit of a hassle, but think of it like this. It's just good agricultural practices,
Mhm.
GAP, but taken to an audit-ready level. If you treat the biomass like garbage, you get paid garbage prices.
That makes sense. And it leads us to the third pillar, stewardship, or Khalifa. We talk
Yeah.
about sustainability all the time in Malaysia. MSPO is mandatory. How is this any different?
It overlaps a lot, you're right.
Yeah.
Khalifa means you have a duty to protect the environment, but where MSPO might frame it as a regulation you have to follow,
Mm-hmm.
halal principles frame it as a spiritual duty.
Okay, but does that actually change what I do in the field?
It can change the limit of what you do. For example, let's say you're harvesting all this biomass. A purely profit-driven approach might be to strip every single frond, every trunk off the land to sell.
Right, it take everything.
But a steward, a Khalifa, knows that you have to leave some organic matter behind to maintain the soil health. You can't just deplete the land for short-term profit.
So there's a balance. I shouldn't take 100% of the fronds if it means my soil dries out and my yield drops next year.
That's it exactly, but also covers emissions. If you just let biomass sit in huge wet piles, it creates a lot of methane. That's failing the stewardship test. So the instruction is to keep it moving efficiently.
Okay, so we've got anti-waste, purity, stewardship. The fourth one is social justice. This feels like it's from a totally different department. Now we're talking about people.
Well, you can't really separate the product from the process.
Yeah.
Halal is about the ethics of the entire transaction. The research is very clear on this. You can't have a halal product if the worker who harvested it was exploited or underpaid.
Ugh. This is where the smallholder rolls their eyes. Not because they want to exploit anyone, but because of the paperwork. How does a buyer in Saudi Arabia know I paid my workers fairly in Johor?
Traceability. And you're right, this is the biggest hurdle. The certification bodies, like JKIM here, they rely on paperwork.
And we know smallholders are not accountants. Paperwork is the enemy.
It can feel that way, but if you want into this supply chain, you have to be ready for an audit. The mill that buys from you will be audited, and they will push that requirement right down to you.
So what's the solution? How does a guy with 5 hectares manage this?
The best advice is to lean on your cooperative or your dealer. Don't try to do it all alone, but you still have to provide them with the basic info. Who harvested when they worked, proof that safety gear was used. If you can't prove fair labor, the product is considered tainted.
Okay, I have to stop you there. We've listed a lot of new jobs. Dedicated storage pads, washing trucks, leaving biomass behind, keeping labor logs. The research says this increases production costs by, 5 to 15%?
That's the estimate, yes. A 5 to 15% increase in your operational costs.
Whoa, hold on. You're telling me to increase my costs by up to 15%. Margins are already tight. Fertilizer is up. Labor is up. Why on earth would I do this? I need to know how I get that money back.
That is the right question to ask, and here's the answer. If you sell generic biomass, you're selling a commodity. You're competing with coal, with every other waste product out there. The price is low, and it's unstable.
And the mill usually just takes it for free or pays peanuts.
Exactly. But the halal energy market is a premium market. The buyers in the Middle East are often required by their own corporate rules to buy compliant energy. They are willing, and sometimes forced, to pay a premium for that guarantee.
So it's like the difference between selling regular coffee beans and selling, say, fair trade organic beans.
That is the perfect analogy. You're taking your product out of the volatile commodity market. You're getting a chance to lock into long-term contracts with buyers who care more about trust than the absolute lowest price.
So the gamble is I spend the extra 15% to professionalize my operation, but I get a buyer who actually gives me a steady contract.
That's the idea.
Yeah.
And look at the bigger picture. The governments in Malaysia and Indonesia are pushing this for national energy security. They want biomass to be a reliable power source.
Because solar and wind aren't always on.
Right. Solar needs sun. But you can burn biomass whenever the grid needs power. The problem for grid operators is feedstock volatility. They hate not knowing if the fuel's going to show up.
And this halal system, with all its rigid tracking and logistics.
It solves that volatility problem. The discipline you need for halal certification track at every pun, keeping it clean, proving the labor is legal, is the exact same discipline you need to stabilize a national energy supply. It forces the whole industry to mature.
That's a fascinating link. So by trying to be ethical, you accidentally become efficient enough to power the country.
It's not an accident. It's a feature of the system. It creates what the researchers call social trust. The consumer trusts, the power is ethical, the farmer gets a stable buyer, and the government gets energy security. It's a win-win-win.
It sounds great, but it all comes down to whether that premium price actually gets to the farmer or if it just stays with the mill.
That's always the risk, isn't it? And that's why smallholders need to organize. If a cooperative can guarantee a huge volume of halal-certified biomass, then you have leverage. You can demand that premium price.
Power in numbers. Okay, that makes sense. Let's wrap this up with a clear checklist. If I'm listening to this on my way to the estate, what are the 3 things I need to change tomorrow?
First, rethink your residues. The ISRAF principle. Don't just push fronds into a ravine. Plan your work so the biomass is stacked and accessible. Treat it like a second harvest, not trash.
Right. Accessibility is everything. Number 2.
Hygiene. The Thahara principle. Look at your truck. Look at your storage area. If you're hauling chemicals and biomass in the same unwashed space, you're failing. Keep things separate and clean.
And the 3rd one.
Traceability. Document your labor. Use your co-op to help with the audit requirements. You have to be ready to prove your product is clean, both physically and ethically.
It really feels like the industry is changing. We used to just talk about OER and FFB. Now we're talking about the ethics of the entire tree.
We are. And what's amazing is how these ancient principles, stewardship, anti-waste, are the very things unlocking these super modern, high-tech energy markets. We think progress is all about technology, but here it's a framework of values that's making everything more efficient.
It changes the story. You're not just a farmer anymore. You're a part of this ethical energy transition.
I'd leave everyone with this thought. When you look at your field tomorrow, do you see a disposal problem that's costing you money? Or do you see a halal energy source that's just waiting to be tapped? The market is there. The rules are clear. It's just a matter of doing the work to capture that value.
Powerful stuff. It might be a bit more work up front, but getting a piece of a trillion-dollar market seems worth it. Remember to visit our AI farming assistant at cropdrive.ai to learn more on how to increase your oil palm yields and incomes. Thanks for listening.